Hi, I'm Jerry with Retrozone, and we are celebrating our 30th anniversary in this same location. Have been in business about 35 years, and we are all about damper systems and zone controls, but not in the conventional way. We're really all about keeping old zone control systems and old dampers up and running. We have the widest selection of ways to replace obsolete motors. You may be in the position, if you're watching this video, of having somebody tell you an entire system needs to be replaced, or that a single motor is going to be $400 or $500. You need to call us, because our most popular RZ3 motor is well under $100 and will replace many motors on the market. We also specialize in retrofit kits. This is actually for old Trolatemp and EWC dampers where the motors are no longer available. We can get those dampers back in business. These are our heavy-duty 3-wire dampers with Belimo commercial motors on them that you will find often less than what you are paying through other outlets to get really fine quality product. We have air-actuated pneumatic dampers that fit inside your duct like this and inflate and deflate to control the airflow, where you can equip a 2 or 3 level home in the North or Midwest that has a basement mounted unit with zone control at an economical price instead of ripping out the entire duct system. We have slip-in type dampers, and then what I'm not showing you are all the large commercial dampers and the other types that we have. So that's what we do. We're really about the air control part of things. And so if you've got a situation where you're finding it difficult to conventionally get dampers installed, give us a call. We'll have a solution for you. Thank you. Hi, I'm Jerry, and I am here to talk about Retrozone. We're celebrating our 30th year at this location. And we do dampers and retrofit dampers and keep old dampers alive. We have a wide selection of kits. This is about our very popular Kit 3 for old Trolatemp. This one's actually labeled Zonatrol upside down. EWC made a similar damper with a blue motor case and a blue label, but it's all the same motor, and it's most easily identifiable by the fact that it has 8 terminals on it. There's no other motor that really looks like this. Now, these are obsolete. They're not made anymore, and we have developed a kit using an outstanding Belimo motor to re-equip this damper. You do not have to pull it out of the duct. It's very easy to do. I'm going to talk to you just for a moment on how to do it. This is what you would start with. This is what your old damper would look like. All you have to do is put a screwdriver in here and disconnect this 1C clip from the control rod right here. Then, taking a small screwdriver, simply prying the old plastic case and motor off the damper. Here's what's holding it on. You can see 3 rivets right there. It's rivets in plastic. They come off real easy. You just want them out of there. There's the old control rod there. Here's how you get the new motor kit with very aggressive 3M double-sided tape on it. Of course, there's a little more in the instructions on this, but you're basically just sticking the motor to the old damper and reattaching the control rod, and then we give you instructions basically on setting it up. It really comes pre-adjusted for the most part, but you can make small adjustments to it. And you actually get some additional features the old motor didn't have. You can set it up to where it'll bypass 10 or 15% air. This is a very fine motor, 5-year warranty, commercial grade Belimo. We make the kits and put the kits together for them, and you can get these old dampers back in business without ever having to pull them out of the duct. Then we also get some questions on this particular kit on wiring, more so than we do other kits, because these are all wafer style motors, and they, in some cases, you'll have 4, 5, 6, 7 wires running to them, and it looks just like a rat's nest. And the questions we'll get is that people are concerned because the new motors only use 3 of those wires because they're chip motors. They have a microprocessor on board. They're a whole lot smarter, and you just don't need the tangle of wiring that these old motors sometimes took. I did want to mention in our instructions, there's some confusion over a jumper. A lot of these old motors would have a jumper between 2 and 5. And which is no longer needed, there's no 2 and 5 on the new motors, there's only 1, 2, 3. But in the instructions, if you're still using the old Trolatemp or EWC panel, and you would know that, many cases, if it still had a gold tone selector switch, we still have some of these in stock and they're very old. But if you see that where you're switching from heat to cool, you likely still have an old panel, and you might have to reinstall that jumper on the panel between the 2 and 5. But that's really it. We're available to do great email tech support. We have people that answer the phones. Just don't worry about the wiring. We will get you through it. It's all really pretty simple. It's mostly the fact that there's so much wiring going away that causes people an issue, but it's just not needed anymore. Thank you. Okay, so we wanted to do a close-up of this. There's a little C-clip that you would need to disconnect on our Kit 3. Simply insert a small screwdriver and basically twist it, and that C-clip will come right off, freeing up the control rod. Interesting, there is the mark showing full open and closed. But once you have that off, then the motor, all you need to do is put perhaps a larger screwdriver under here, turn, and simply pry the plastic motor in the case off the damper. It's actually fairly easy to do. It's rivets holding plastic. And then on the new motor, you can see the new control rod connection right there to the damper. The new motors have clutches and many more features where you can actually see the damper in operation. So what's happening is the motor pivots back and forth, and that's completely controllable. You can select how far the damper's open, how far they close. And that's really all there is to it. We do leave 3 holes in the bracket because if you have a particularly dirty damper or tape, or you're just not clear whether that tape is going to stick, we also provide 3 self-tapping sheet metal screws to go ahead and mount it on that way. Okay, don't forget the test light. This is something unique that we do, and this can get you out of a lot of trouble in terms of diagnosing, well, do you really have power to the motor? Because if you don't, it's not going to go anywhere. So this is a handy device for that. Now, I'm going to go back over, again, positioning the blades, because we do have some questions on that. Rectangular blade, the motor is going to operate counterclockwise when, in fact, it is powered up. So counterclockwise, all the way closed, 90 degrees back, and I know you can't see inside your duct, so come back precisely 90 degrees and that damper will be open, and install the motor, lock it down, and you should be in good shape at that point. Round dampers, very much the same. Most of them that you encounter are going to have rubber blade seals in them, and so what you're going to find out is going clockwise, that's completely closed. Same thing, 90 degrees backwards will give me an open damper. You can make marks on the shaft, do it however you want. And by the way, if I didn't say this, both of these types of dampers need to operate freely. If you grab one of these and you really can't turn it with your fingers on the shaft, it may be corroded or have something jamming it, and we do see that. There's sometimes some trash in duct systems, so be aware of that. So there I am. Okay, this is a little bit more on basically positioning the blade. You've got ducts on both ends. You can't see what's in there. You make sure that the shaft turns freely. Now, I'm going to go 90 degrees. I'm going to actually just go forward until I hit the rubber blade seals in the dampers. Okay, that's as far as it will go. Then I'm going to come back 90 degrees, 1/4 of a turn, and that's where I want to install my motor. I probably would have made a mark on the shaft to make sure I'm getting it on. Install the motor, tighten it down, and that's all there is to it. Now, I did mention earlier there was a another way to do it that might be a little more precise if you want to do it, and that is to close the blade all the way, then power the motor, provide a source of 24 volts AC to it. They're sitting right there on your damper output, so it's pretty easy to do that. And then once the motor is fully powered off the damper, and you know the blade is in the closed position, then you can put it together that way with perhaps a higher degree of certainty that it's all oriented correctly. Thanks. Okay, I wanted to talk about this a little bit too. On the Honeywell M847D motors, which we see a lot, and they're followed by some numbers, but it doesn't really much matter what the next 4 digits are. They're all generally the same. You'll see this apparatus down at the bottom of the motor, these levers and a wing nut. And what those are designed to do is basically provide a means of keeping the damper from closing all the way. In some applications, you may want some bleed air. So you may not want the damper to close all the way. You may want 10% bleed air to get around it. We rarely see these used, and so we don't burden the expense of our motors with them. But if you do see this in use, we have very inexpensively a kit that adds back to our RZ3. I think it's just a few dollars, that basically fits underneath this collar. We give you a screw, and basically it blocks the motor from closing all the way, and it's just that simple. So if you think you might need one of those, they are available. Thank you. Hello, I am Jerry with Retrozone Inc. We are one of the largest motor suppliers for dampers, and this video is directed at our RZ31, which is our most popular spring return damper motor, very often used to replace the Honeywell M847D motor, which we see a lot of, but there are many other motors that feature what we call a common footprint. Here's a Honeywell right here. You can see that they both actually have the same mountings, and they all will interchange. So having said that, before you get into doing this, make sure you have a low voltage system. Almost any damper system now that has some sort of zone control panel like this and uses small wires are almost universally 24 volts AC. However, there could be some 110 volt motors out there. If you see black, white, and green wires, just be aware of that and do whatever you need to do to ensure your own safety if you are unsure on that matter. Now, I'm going to show you just how easy it is to replace the motor, in this case, on an old Honeywell damper. Now, this is not what you're seeing in the field, because yours is obviously built into a duct system. There's no need to remove the damper. You'll have tape, mastic. This one's been pulled out. Here's the old Honeywell motor. You simply loosen the 3/16 Allen connector to it. The motor comes right off. Our new motor actually fits, turn it the correct way, right back on. The cover's loose on this right now, and then it's simply a matter of retightening it. Well, it's not quite that simple, but almost, because once you have the old motor off, you do need to make sure that the damper turns freely. And this is perhaps the biggest question that we get, is how do you know that the damper blade is in the right position prior to reinstalling the motor? Well, these motors turn counterclockwise to close typically. And so if I turn it all the way clockwise to open, and then I mount the motor, then I should be in good shape. Okay, that should be the correct orientation. Or what I can do is actually power the motor. Go ahead and connect power, 24 volts AC. And by the way, there's no polarity. You can't get these wires backwards. Go ahead and connect it and power it. If you're unsure of power, that's why we supply you with our LED test light, so that you can just touch the wires. If the light lights up, you've got 24 volt power. And you can actually power the motor, which should be in its closed position. At that point, you would rotate the damper blades all the way closed, and then mount the powered motor on here, knowing that the blades are closed, the motor's closed, and then as soon as power is disconnected from it, the damper will open up. So round dampers, which we see many of as well, maybe are a little bit more of a challenge, but still sort of the same way. Now this is, of course, buried into your duct system. You don't want to open it. You don't have a way of looking in there to see the blade. So counterclockwise, again, closes the damper. And this is important. A quarter turn, 90 degrees, opens it up. So when trying to determine where exactly to position that blade, you could take a Sharpie, rotate it all the way counterclockwise, make a small mark on the shaft, go 90 degrees forward, and then that is where you would basically mount the motor and lock it down with a good assurances. Now that it's in the correct position. Now you could do just like the rectangular damper. You could do the same thing where you rotate it all the way clockwise until it hits its internal seals. You could then power the motor. And this is maybe a little more accurate way of doing it because you know the blade's closed, you know the motor's closed, and then mount the two of them together at that point, knowing that you really have it in the correct orientation. So that's another way to do it. Now, you could also drill holes in here where you can actually look in there. You can disconnect ducts. There's other ways to do it, but usually they're not necessary. These are all very low pressure duct systems, and with foil tape you can easily seal an access hole or some sort of visual port to do that. So fear not, it's not like drilling a hole into your plumbing. This is all air operating at a fraction of a PSI, and it's very easy to seal up. So when it comes back to wiring, it's really usually just a matter of connecting the two wires that you disconnected. Again, there's no polarity. You can't get it backwards. And I want to reassure you too that on these spring return type motors, you're not going to damage them. If you have them on there oriented backwards, if you don't have them adjusted completely the right way, whatever the case may be, they may not open or close all the way, but you're not going to hurt the motor. So go ahead and just give it a whirl and see how it goes. Okay, this is a little closer look at changing the motor. There's going to be an Allen a bolt here, and it could also be a very small Allen bolt actually down in the collar down here. So be aware of that. But to change this motor, disconnect it, loosen it, pull it out. If it's sticky on there, you may have to use a little WD-40 or some kind of lube. New motor is going back on, same way. Now remember the part where we need to, in this case, it's a normally open damper, so we're going to open the blades. Going to put it on there, and we're simply going to reattach it. Now, occasionally I'll get a call from the field that the motor's not fitting on there very easily. Just be aware that if there's a little Allen piece in here or this Allen bolt, make sure it's backed out far enough. It's not easy to see, and I've done it myself where you look, you think you're clear, and it won't go on. Also, these are aluminum shafts on these Honeywell dampers, and they can get burrs on them from the old motor, so don't be afraid to take a little sandpaper and sand those smooth, and then it should fit right on. Tighten it up, and you're done. Hi, I'm Jerry Tartolino with Retrozone Inc. The purpose of this training film is troubleshooting of our AirZone flex damper based systems. These systems have been sold since about 1986. Every system ever sold is still fully serviceable, but it is a system that requires a little bit of explanation. Once you understand how it works, it's a very simple system. We're going to go over the components as well as a new test kit, the AZ test kit, that we're now offering for about $29, which makes it very easy to troubleshoot these systems. In fact, everyone that has one of these systems should have one of the troubleshooting kits. We're going to go over how to use it and how the system works. First, just an overview of the components. Every system is going to have a pump. Usually this pump is hanging on the wall, In this case, we've just got it set on these boxes. This is the solenoid panel and pump. It contains a couple of electric to pressure solenoids, and that's how the pump, that's how we switch either vacuum or pressure out to the field dampers. This is one of our rectangular dampers that is under pressure, which would cause it to inflate in a rectangular duct and to shut the airflow off. This is a round 6-inch that's not installed in a duct. If it were, I have a section of flex duct here. We could install it in this section of flex duct. Pops into place. That's what it would look like actually put into a duct. Right now, we have one of the solenoids energized. That typically puts it into pressure mode, causes it to inflate. The one without the light on is de-energized. That's this damper, which puts it into the suction mode and causes it to deflate and, of course, let airflow pass. Now, the major components of the system are simply the dampers, the pump that I briefly talked about. That pump has got a couple of relays in it that are tied into the equipment side of your heating and air conditioning unit. It's all low voltage, but it does tie into the fan and to the furnace circuit, so the pump only runs when the heating and air conditioning equipment is running. The pump's running right now. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but it is very quiet. It's a vibration style pump that provides both pressure and vacuum. Now, the pump again goes to the solenoid switches. The solenoid switches switch the pump from either vacuum to pressure. Typically, the vacuum line runs to the bottom set of the ports on the switches. The pressure side tends to run to the top side. Not always, though. It can be configured differently for a normally open or a normally closed damper, but we'll leave that to another subject. Now, what happens when you have one of these systems and all of a sudden something's not working? Typical failure modes are not with the dampers. The 6-inch damper, in fact, has a cycle life of about 300 to 600,000 cycles, which is better than actually most mechanical dampers. They tend to be very long-lived. Part of the reason for that is the dampers, and I'm going to change this over. I'm actually going to change this over so the rectangular damper deflates under vacuum and this inflates under pressure. Okay? You'll see this one go down. You're going to see this one inflate. They only inflate to about a half a psi of pressure, and that's one of the reasons they last so long. It's not like a balloon where you're stretching or elongating the material. You're simply moving it around. This is a closed one. Now, you may have actually been able to hear the venting, because what happens, and this is an important part of this system, once a damper is fully inflated, the excess airflow is vented out of this pressure relief valve. There's one of these per system. They're directional. If you take it out, you need to make sure you get it back in the right way. But that's how this works, and that's why this system is not affected by small leaks. You can actually take an ice pick and poke holes in these dampers, and they'll continue to work, right up to the point that there are so many leaks that the pump can't keep up with them. But it's an extremely simple system, very reliable. There's also a vacuum relief. You can tell it because it has got a foam filter on it. That's how air actually gets back into the system. Now, what happens if you've got a system, you're looking at it, you're not sure what's working and what's not working? This is where our new test kit really comes into play. Test kit, it's an airflow meter from Dwyer. It's got a few extra pieces of tubing and a plug and some parts just to make this easy to do. The most service-oriented part of this system is the pump. The pumps tend to last anywhere from 4 or 5 years to 10, 12. We have some out still going after 15 or 16 years of operation. So the first thing we're going to check with the pump is we're going to go check the pressure side. I'm going to disconnect where the pump ties into the solenoid panel. I'm now going to take that, using my tubing kit. One of them is an adapter to take the larger tubing down to the smaller tubing. this Dwyer flow meter has got two ports on it. Bottom port for pressure, top port for vacuum. We are checking pressure now. There's a little ball in here. I'm not sure if you can see that, but when we hook this up to the pump and then hold it vertically, we can see that the ball has gone up to about 14 square cubic feet per hour. This is a good pump. It's a brand new pump. That's the output of it. You can easily see what it's putting out. That's a pump that easily passes. Anything over 7 or 8, in fact, is a good number for this system. So we verified that the pump is in fact putting out the flow that we want it to put out. Can we actually see the ball in there? Okay, good. Now we're gonna reconnect that, and we're gonna disconnect the vacuum side and test it. Same way, the vacuum side is actually the bigger tube going into the side of the pump. For this, we want to use the top port, and once again, I think you can see the ball picking up. It's running about 10 or 12, also a very good number. Anywhere around 5 or better on the vacuum side is a good number. We've now verified that pump. You know it's a good pump. And that's where I would say a great majority of the problems are going to be right there. Pumps are easy to replace, they're relatively inexpensive, so most times that you encounter a system and it doesn't seem to be working right, that's what it's going to be. Now again, this system was sold under the name Interzone or Interzone Systems Corporation starting in about 1986 all the way to 1999. After 1999, same system under the name of Retrozone or Retrozone Inc. Website is retrozone.com. If you will look under technical resources, you will find various videos and other aids in terms of hooking pumps up and that sort of thing. So I want to make sure we mention that. These systems are still completely serviceable. So we verified the pump. Now let's go over here to actually the zone output tubes. The one with a red light on, we know that it is in the pressure mode. That's this round one. So I'm going to pull that off. I'm going to find my tubing and I'm going to connect the flow meter to the outgoing port. And here we can see that we have virtually the same flow, about 13 or 14 square cubic feet per hour. So we know we're getting generally our full flow through the pump, through the solenoids, and out to that zone port. So now, if we almost saw no flow at this point, yet we knew our pump was good, about the only component to then be suspect of is in fact these solenoids. If these solenoids begin to stick to where they're not going fully up or fully down, then they'll simply sit there and bypass air in a circular mode. That's something to watch for. The solenoids are extremely reliable, but it can happen. And you can either replace it at that point, or you can put a good squirt of silicone, 100% silicone lubricant. You really don't want to use anything else, but try some silicone lube in there. A lot of times they will come back to life and then work for many more years after that. So that's what we're going to do. Same thing out here. This one's in the vacuum mode. Again, using our tubing setup, we can connect to the side pulling vacuum. Again, hooking to the top port, because we're actually now pulling the ball up with vacuum. Again, we see a good reading, so this system is really checking out nicely at this point. It's brand new, it should check out nicely. Let's hook our dampers back up. And let's take a look at one other part of this. Let's see. I'm not gonna hook up the round one just yet. I'm now going to check the pressure relief. Now again, the way this system works is that when a damper fully inflates, the excess pressure starts dumping out the pressure relief valve, which keeps it at about a half a psi, and then the excess air will start dumping out of this valve. If it never starts dumping out of this valve, well then you can bet it's going to be a leak downstream in the tubing, a connection, a damper, or whatever. And I'll just show you. We'll take a look at how how that looks. So I'm going to hook up our meter now, which is a different size tube. I'm going to hook it up to the bottom port of our test meter, and then I'm going to reconnect. Now what you're going to see two things. The damper is going to be inflating. Right now there's no air coming through this meter, but as soon as the damper is substantially inflated, then the excess air is going to start bypassing out of the system through that pressure relief valve, and we can see the ball moving up on the test instrument. That's normal operation, but you may have 10 or 12 of these dampers tied together on a zone, and you may have to give it a little bit of time to where you know that they're fully inflated before you expect to see this air bypassing. Okay? Now, the old way of doing this was, I want to point this out, it's actually very possible on these dampers, since they only use about a half a PSI. If you don't have the test instrument, it's actually, frankly, very easy to blow these things up to about a half a PSI, which is about what we can comfortably do with our lungs. Now, as you would expect, they'll just get to a point where they won't take any more air. But if you have a circuit and you continue to try to inflate them, and they just keep bleeding down and keep bleeding down, that's another good sign that you've got a leak in the system, and it's time to go track that particular circuit down. It's important, if you have a 3 or a 4 zone system, that you only have one in the pressure mode. It's important to understand that these circuits, if you have 2 in the vacuum mode, well, they're interconnected, so you could have a leak over on one circuit, but you might think it's on the other circuit. So that's what the plug is for, is to basically plug off all the circuits that you're not using and isolating it just down to one. But there's the flow meter. That's how you use it. You just work through the system, and you can really get down, I think, very quickly to what and where the problem is, if you have one. Again, these systems are fully serviceable. All parts are available. We're Retrozone.com. We're in Parker, Texas. Our phone number is 972-633-8104. Email is support@retrozone.com. If you have an issue, you might try emailing us. We'll be happy to work with you on these systems. All parts are available. Retrozone.com. Thank you for your time. Hi, I'm Jerry Tartolino with Retrozone Inc. Today we're going to talk about damper motor replacements. We're doing more and more business on this in terms of helping people retrofit motors back onto existing dampers that are already installed in the ducts. Sometimes, as you can see from this Honeywell damper, they're all taped in, glued in. It's a lot easier to change the motor. Oftentimes now, there's a lot of these different motors out there that are obsolete. You either can't find them, or they're extremely expensive to find and replace because the manufacturers of the motor control the distribution of them in a way that makes them expensive. The third reason is a lot of people are tired of spring return damper motors because they keep failing. Spring return damper motors are 2-wire motors. You can always tell if it's a spring return because it has 2 wires coming out of it. And what a lot of people don't understand is the way they work is they have to consume power continuously to keep the damper open or closed because the spring is always trying to pull them back in the other direction. As a result, they get hot and the failure rate's a lot higher. In some cases, some people that we've sold the retrofit kits to are just tired of replacing damper motors. So I'll start right here just to show you how this goes. I can't cover everything. We have a lot of different kits, a lot of different ways to do it, but I'll show you what I am looking for. We're either going to have the kits ready to go. For instance, this is a Honeywell ARD damper that uses a 2-wire spring return motor. This same kit would also work on a Research Products April Air damper, also works on the Suncourt damper, and almost any damper that has a shaft sticking out of the side of it. If it's got a shaft sticking out of the side, then our retrofit kits take an adapter shaft that we manufacture with an Allen head wrench that simply goes on. I'm not going to tighten all this down, but you'll get the idea. You would mount the anti-rotation bracket on the damper, so you need a drill. We provide you with the self-tapping sheet metal screws. And then the motor simply fits on like that, and now you have the just outstanding Belimo LMB series motor on this damper. This is a commercial grade motor. I'll not get in too far on selling it, but one of the advantages of these kits are not only can you get an obsolete damper back in business, but you're going to be doing it with a motor that was far superior to what you're replacing. These have 5-year factory warranties on them, and we never get them back under warranty. And there's few things I can say about that on, but we just don't get them back. It's an outstandingly good motor. If you're replacing a 2-wire motor, you may go, oh, but I only have 2 wires going to that damper motor. That's correct. This motor uses 3, so you'd need to get a 3rd wire from your zone control panel back to this motor. Don't worry about the wiring. We'll show you how to do that. It's universally easy to do. Most zone control panels, in fact, support a 3-wire output. And if you'll check the thermostat wire that actually was run to that 2-wire damper motor, you very well may find that there's 3 or 4 or a couple of more unused wires in there. So check that. Usually these are in attics and basements where that 3rd wire is pretty easy. If it's not, and sometimes we run into that, we also have kits really to do the same thing using the Belimo 2-wire spring return TF series motors. Outstanding motor, looks huge compared to the spring return motor that came off, but only uses, this Belimo only uses 1/4 of the power that the typical Synchron and Kramer motors use. And that's because it's a gear train motor, it's a much finer built motor, it's far more power efficient, so you still save a lot of energy when you go this route. So we can help you retrofit either type on there. Now, I want to show you a few other things. Another damper that we see a lot of older style are both Trolatemp and EWC dampers. You can spot them because they have these 8 terminals on the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and X and Z on them. Trolatemps were orange, the EWC motors were blue, same motor, came off of a can like this. Once again, we have adapter shafts built for them. Here is the adapter. It simply slips into the damper. There's a piece of strap that we provide that keeps the shaft in there, and once again, just like the other ones, then the motor simply goes on. You mount an anti-rotation strap, and it's really quite simple to do. Instructions come with it. We're always there on technical support. So that's the EWC model. There's a lot of, especially in California, a lot of the Z-Tech and Butler systems that used a motor that was recessed down. Here it is. It's got, looks like a Synchron motor, has a long shaft on it. We've got that change-out kit right here, a little longer shaft. It's an easy one to do. It simply goes down on the shaft, and then either one of the Belimo motors bolt on top of it. Okay. Now here's what we're either going to have it, or if we don't know exactly what damper you have, I'm going to ask you to take about 3 pictures with your camera phone and email them to support@retrozone.com. That's support, S-U-P-P-O-R-T, @retrozone.com. And what I'm looking, I'll use the Honeywell. What I'm looking for you to do is take a picture of the outside of the damper, pull the motor, show me the underside of the damper to where I can see the shaft or the collar, and then also show me the damper where I can see what we have to mount to there. And I'm probably going to go, oh, well, you just need to use this shaft or this motor or this connection, or we'll figure it out from there. But this is truly a deal where a picture is worth 1,000 words. So if we don't already have the kit, that's what I'm going to ask you to do. If it's easy for you to do, just go ahead and send me those 3 pictures. If you'd like, if you're converting 2 wires to 3 wires, you can also send me a picture of the zone control panel if you have one, close enough to where I can see the wiring and the schematic, and I can help you if there's any wiring issues. But the wiring is usually simple stuff on these. Now, some of the adapter shafts we both mill, weld, and machine various adapter shafts to allow these motors to virtually go back on any other dampers. Here's a Retrozone product. We also have lots of replacement motors as well. If you don't want to do the kits and you're just happy to get another motor back on there, I'll have I'll have all the Retrozone motors. We've got various Synchron motors. I do want to talk about the Synchron motor a little bit. Synchron is and has been a major manufacturer of damper motors. We see this a lot of times. We have some of these motors, but generally Synchron made many different variations of these motors. They may look the same from this angle, but the shafts are very often different, the part number, the rotation, so you can't just use one that sort of looks like it, because it typically won't work. It really has to be the right Synchron motor if it's going to work, and I may have it. So just give us a call at Retrozone, and of course, if for some reason the actual can is not in good shape or it looks like it's going to be a lot of trouble, we manufacture all kinds of very outstanding and high quality dampers, the complete cans with the Belimo motors. For instance, this particular part is a 8-inch. It sells for $105, and that is with the outstanding Belimo LMB series motor on it. It uses all Retrozone drive hardware, half-inch commercial hardware. The blades are bolted up to the can. It's as good a damper as you can buy in the country right now. We're very proud of it. We also have it in rectangular. So if we can't help you, or you just don't want to fool with the damper replacement kits, we can also help you with the new dampers and really anything else you need. We're full service in damper and zone control. It's our only business, and we think we're the best around at it. Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Jerry Tartolino with Retrozone Inc. And this is just a short video on our damper replacement motor kits and what we need to help you to get an obsolete damper back in place. If you know that you have a Honeywell ARD damper and the motor's failed, or a Suncord or an April Air Research Products, we don't really need these pictures at that point. We will know what you have, so you just call us and let us know. But we also get a lot of calls where there's been so much foil and so much mastic, and dampers are so sealed under insulation that folks don't really understand what they have. And so what we ask for then are a few pictures, and if we have those pictures, we can advise you of your options, and we can almost always get your damper back in business. We'll use this one right here. The pictures we're looking for is typically 3 or 4. One of simply the outside of the motor mounted on the damper, then the motor removed and the underside of the motor, as well as a picture of the shaft, maybe from about a foot back, to where we see what we can perhaps grab onto with one of our adapter shafts. And we have many different kinds, so if we can see that. Now, you may be wanting to convert from a 2-wire motor that's spring return. A lot of people are turned off by spring return damper motors because they consume power continuously. They get hot because they're having to pull against the spring that's trying to pull them the other way. And it's virtually, on all zone control systems, it's very easy to change over to a 3-wire damper motor, which is in all senses a better proposition. If you'd like, go ahead and take a picture of your zone control board so I can see what you have and I can see the wire, and usually it's very easy at that point. If you can physically get a wire from the zone control board, a 3rd wire from the zone control board to the damper, it's usually very easy to add. And by the way, you might look and see what wire's already been run, because very often there'll be an extra 1 or 2 conductors in the wire that's already run there. You don't have to run any extra wire. You just have to hook one up. So send these pictures to support@retrozone.com, SUPPORT @retrozone.com, and our phone number is 972-633-8104. We'll be happy to help, and I would say about 9 times out of 10 we can either get an obsolete damper back in business, or if we can't, we have some of the finest brand new dampers that we manufacture here with that same Belimo motor on them. This particular damper is an 8-inch for $105, best price in the country for that good of a damper with that motor on it. Thank you. I'm Jerry Tartolino, and we appreciate your business. Hi, I'm Jerry Tartolino with Retrozone Inc. in the Dallas, Texas area. We have been in business since 1985 making dampers and zone control systems. We have a number of unique and innovative products. I want to talk today about our Super Duty dampers. This is the highest quality damper on the market for the money, and it sounds like a great sales claim, but I'm going to show you why that is. But in any case, we also have a full line of products, most of course which we can't put on the conference table, including zone control systems, thermostats, barometric relief doors. That's all we do are zone control systems. And so we invite you to call us. We'll help you design a zone control system and tell you how much bypass air, if you even need bypass air. We go through from start to finish and send out complete estimates to you via email. And our email, by the way, is support@retrozone.com. Our website is retrozone, retrozone.com. And our phone number is 972-633-8104. Now I'm going to give you just a brief overview. We're doing a number of videos on products. This was actually showing our Flex Damper retrofit damper product that actually inserts into the duct system. We have one of the best, and again, this typically goes into systems never designed for zoning that just won't accept other types of dampers. We also have the highest quality slip-in damper on the market that just cuts a slot in an existing duct, and this uses the outstanding commercial grade Belimo 3-wire actuator, the LMB actuator. It's one of the most highly regarded damper motors on the market. You won't see them in residential applications because they're an expensive motor. But when I describe to you the differences and how we go to market, I think you may be really impressed, and you may decide you want to use our line of Super Duty dampers that are powered by the Belimo LMB actuator, 5-year warranty on it. Dampers are new enough to most people that the quality differences aren't really well known. We've been doing this since 1985, and so we know them. I'll start by telling you that most of what homeowners see on the market for mechanical dampers are spring return dampers. The reason that is because spring return dampers are the least expensive way to make a damper. We have a warehouse full of them. We have to compete in those markets too. The ones that are designed to do it are okay, but what most people do not understand about 2-wire spring return dampers are the fact that when you power them to either open or close them, they have to continually draw power the whole time to maintain tension against that spring. And so what it means is you have a damper that is pulling 7 or 8 VA of power continuously, and the motors will get so hot that you can't even touch them. We've had a number of them returned because people that, when they discover that, it's not a very elegant operation. The far better way to do it is what we call a 3-wire damper, or a power open, power closed damper, where you power the damper to open it, you power it to close it, and then it doesn't pull any power at all. In fact, instead of 8 or 9 VA of power, this particular motor is so efficient it only pulls 2 VA of power, and then only while it's moving. So that's a great enhancement. It never even gets warm to the touch. Especially in southern markets where these dampers are going up in the attics, you really don't want to put a spring return in, because if you put it in a 130-degree attic and the motor is pulling power all the time, that motor will exceed its manufacturer recommendation or specification on how hot that motor should get very quickly. And that may be a reason that we see certainly a higher degree of failure with spring return dampers. So you can tell I'm not a fan of them. They're okay in certain applications, but generally a 3-wire damper that pulls power only while it's moving is certainly a more elegant, more energy efficient solution, and it's one that lasts a whole lot longer as well. Belimo motor, by the way, has a factory warranty of 5 years on it. What else I haven't really described, though, is the can is also very important. This is perhaps the finest can made on the market. We make them here. We make this can here. We are an OEM for Belimo. We mount the motor on it here. We test it and we send them out. There is one level of markup on this damper. We put a fair profit on it. We send it out the door. That is why you will not find any damper this good in the price range that we sell this, and I'm not kidding on that either. But besides just the damper motor, this is a clutch. I'm going to open this up and show you a couple of things about this damper. That is that it's got foam gasketing material in it. This is actually all the components, all the hardware, the shafts, the bronze bushings, all of those parts and pieces, including the gasketing, is made by Duradyne, which is the largest manufacturer of sheet metal and damper parts like that, mostly commercially used in the United States. I'm going to go ahead and close this up again, show you how this is built. You can see that the actual damper blade is bolted onto the blades. That's highly unusual. Most cheap residential dampers you're going to see are spot welded on there. We have had we've seen damper blades that have come off spot welds that have broken plastic bushings. I've got an example of an old one out of the junk pile. This would be what I would consider a cheap residential grade damper. It's got plastic bushings. It just has a spring. That's what pulls back against the motor. This one is broken. The actual plastic bushing on this side broke. It's got a 2-wire spring return damper on it. The company that made this is out of business, by the way, so we don't mind showing the damper. But that's how it's very light gauge metal on the can, and that's just how cheaply some of these dampers can be made. So ask some questions about spring return dampers, and I think you may decide that you might like a good heavy-duty 3-wire damper if you expect it to last. You're going to be in that home for a while. Also now, another thing to point out is that there's lots of what we call slave zone applications where a damper is tied just directly to a thermostat. It's not a full-blown zoning system. You can use this 3-wire damper in a slave zone application, and that's unusual too because of the way a thermostat works. It only puts out voltage on one terminal when it wants a damper to open. But this 3-wire damper has a trick circuit in it that makes it perfect for zone control systems, so you can still use it, makes it perfect for slave zone systems, so you can still use it in those applications. It's so easy to tell you about, I will give you the specifics on it. You put 24 volts power on terminals 1 and 2 all the time. 24 volts just sits there. And then from the thermostat, when you put power on terminal 3, the damper will open. When you pull power, the damper will close. It's that simple. You don't have to use any relays or anything else to use it just with a thermostat, which on most 3-wire dampers, you do have to do that, but not on this one. So you can use it either on zone control systems. Virtually any zone control system on the market is going to have a 3-wire damper output to it, and usually it's labeled PO for power open or PC for power closed, and then the Honeywell and some of those lines will show an M1, M2, M4, M6. Works with all those, and we're here to show you how to hook that up. It's very easy. You can use this on any brand of zone control system, and by the way, we offer all of those. In any case, now, if you do decide that you really do want a spring return damper, we also offer the Belimo spring return motors. This is a much heavier duty motor, but it pulls a lot less power than a cheap residential grade spring return motor, and that's because some of the extra money in this motor is spent on a gear train. So it's got a gear drive on it, which allows it to use a much smaller motor. So in fact, I think it's actually right on here. I think it pulls 2.5 watts as opposed to 9 or 10 watts of a standard spring return damper. It just pulls 2.5 when it's in operation. So less power, less energy use, more power, less heat. So there really is some advantages to using a higher grade spring return damper. Well, I want to invite you, we make these all the way up to 18 inch, all the way down to 4-inch dampers. and we're easy to work with. We can do custom work. If you want something special, give us a call and we'll try to accommodate you. We also have the full range of Belimo actuators, including motors that mount on these same cans. It will take 2 to 10 volt DC signals, 4 to 20 milliamps. We have all the Belimo line of motors, and we would invite you to call us. Again, our phone number is 972-633-8104. We're retrozone.com, or you can email us at support@retrozone.com. Thank you. Hi, I'm Jerry Tartolino with Retrozone Inc. in the Dallas, Texas area. We make damper systems and zone control systems. We have one very popular product that has been on the market since 1988, and that is our Flex Damper Retrofit Damper System. We are the manufacturer of this. We are the only source for it. There are thousands of these out in the market, and it's a system that deserves some attention if you are in a home that has never been designed for zoning, or was not designed for zoning in the first place, and has a duct system that was not designed for zoning, and you might need 10, 15, or 20 or more dampers to actually be able to get comfort in your home or energy savings by dividing your home into 2 or 3 more zones. This system is specifically for these homes. It's very popular in the Midwest and up in the Northeast, as well as in southern markets where you have a lot of flex duct systems up in attic, because this is a 6-inch round flex damper. It's air actuated. I know you've probably seen some of this information on our website, but I know there's some more questions about this system, because what is an inflatable damper system? So I want to cover that with you and just show you a few parts and pieces and go over some of the commonly asked questions on this system. This is how it comes to you. This is a 6-inch round, which is by far our most popular size. We have them in 4-inch all the way up to 14-inch, and then we have a complete selection of rectangular flex dampers as well that can be mixed in. This is the pumping unit. This is actually the device, and over here is the pump. It's actually laying on the table, but it's designed to hang up on your wall next to the solenoid panel and pump. And I think we have lost the wire. Oh, here we go. Back in business, just had a short circuit. I have it all jumpered behind the runt. But gosh, I get lots of questions, and always have, about, well, is the pump noisy? Well, it's really, and again, here's the pump. It's really an industrial version of an aquarium pump. It puts out both pressure and vacuum. It's very quiet. It has relays in it that tie into your system, so that, and it's actually running right now. It has relays that tie into your system so that the pump only runs when the heating and air conditioning system runs. And so what little noise that it does make is really obscured by the fan, because the pump and the solenoid panel are usually located down next to the heating and air conditioning unit. So this is compatible with any 24-volt AC zone control system on the market. You can go ahead and pick whatever thermostats you want to use, including communicating thermostats, wireless thermostats, normal Home Depot thermostats, whatever you want to use. Zone control panels. Now, we offer all that, but this video is really explaining the flex damper system. Again, 6-inch flex damper. This is our most popular one. When it comes to you, it's flat. You also get a roll of special connect tape. It's cloth-bound connect tape, and it's heat activated. And so when you get it, you actually are taping the 2 ends together to turn it into a round device. Okay? And for flex duct, you tape it so it's a little bit larger in diameter. For steel, a little bit smaller, but it's really actually very easy to do. Here's one that I've already taped together, shown in a duct system. This, if you're in the north or northeast or Midwest, this may look a lot like your duct system, other than this would be in the basement, up against the ceiling with these round takeoffs. This clear piece of duct is for illustration only. You won't have any clear duct. It doesn't come with our system. These insert directly into the sheet metal ductwork or the flexible ductwork that's already there. So, also the tubing is I'm showing a clear tubing here, but that's only for purposes of demonstration. This is the black standard UL rated pneumatic tubing that comes with the system that you use. The clear tubing I'm showing here is just easier to demonstrate. So, to put this in the duct, it's folded up like that. It's inserted into the duct and simply popped into place. And that's all there is to it. It could have been inserted from this end. You could have cut a hole on the bottom of this rectangular trunk line and using your arm simply inserted it up this way. It could have been inserted from the register, or you could have actually cut a hole in what portion of the duct you could get to, just a hole big enough to get your hand through, and you could have inserted it this way. That's all very well covered in our installation manual. Now I'm going to actually move this and inflate it. You'll see how this works. Now, a lot of people think that, well, it's like a balloon, the material's going to stretch, how long is it going to last? But you're going to see when it inflates here that we only use a half a psi. The material in it is a very high-grade urethane material. It does not get old, it doesn't rot over time. You can see that it is not inflated very tight. And because the pump is constantly running, you can actually take an ice pick or sheet metal screws and poke holes in these, and they'll continue to work. That's always a question that we get. The system can have multiple leaks in it and continue to work. Only at such time that the leaks become so great that the pump can't keep up is the only time that it would not work. Now, reliability, because of the way it works, and I'm going to let it go back down again. Because of the way this works, it's got a very gentle action, it's a very low pressure. We have tested these on high-speed testers over 600,000 and 700,000 cycles. So the reliability is dramatic. You can see it's pulled down under vacuum so that when it is fully evacuated, it actually blocks less airflow than a traditional mechanical damper where the blade is located in the middle of it. Instead, there's no obstruction in the middle. Airflow is very free to pass. So in that case, it actually has many benefits over traditional mechanical motorized dampers. But certainly the biggest one, there are two big advantages here. One, the actual damper cost is quite low compared to a traditional mechanical damper. And so if you need to use 15 or 20 of them on a job, or 10 or however many you choose or need to use, you'll find that overall the actual damper per damper cost is quite low. Plus the fact is, since you're not trying to cut a section of duct out, you can get these dampers in from the register. You can get them in anywhere that you can actually physically get them into the duct. They're the damper that you can install in jobs that you just can't use other dampers. We also offer very high quality slip-in dampers. This is also a retrofit damper, and you may have seen these others offer these as well. But I want to mention these for a moment because the way they're installed is a slot is cut out of a duct, and then this is inserted into the slot. This is bolted down onto the duct, and then you have a damper in there. Now what's different about this one is it uses a very high-grade Belimo LMB actuator, which is a 3-wire actuator, and it only uses power when it's moving. What a lot of the competition won't tell you about a lot of these slip-in dampers is that they are spring return. And when they are energized, in other words, when you power them to close them, they continue to sit there and pull 8 or 10 watts of power. Now that doesn't sound like very much, but if you have 10 or 15 of these dampers installed, it's a significant amount of power, and you'll find the motors on them get very hot because they're continually pulling power because they have to pull against that spring. We're not real high on spring return dampers in general. They have their place in the market, but not in multiple use on retrofit applications. Of course, that's one of the, but where you would use this is if you are trying to cut off just a room or two, or you need a few of these, and it's easier to use a retrofit damper because that duct system is already in place. Hard pipe, maybe a section of hard pipe would be hard to cut out. If you're using flex, though, it's usually very easy to just put in a traditional motorized damper. Okay, so I hope I've answered a few of those questions. Now I want to show you there's also a retrofit solution over here, I am going to, we can bring the camera around here. This is a retrofit damper. This one's actually not big enough for this duct. We have a wider model, but you can get the idea. They slide into the duct like this. You can bend them, you can fold them, you can put them in through registers. And we only have 4 models of this that you actually cut them down to size to fit your duct.
That's a rectangular damper.
That's a rectangular damper right there. So in any case, what you're seeing right there is the T connector. You don't have to buy extra parts and pieces for these dampers. We give you the extra parts and pieces so that you can tee all these together. I think that probably brings up another question. There's no need to run a air tube from every damper back to this solenoid panel. You simply tee dampers together that are on a common zone. So if you have 4 or 5 dampers serving the upstairs, those would be with these provided tees teed together, and you'd only have 1 tube going back to the panel. Now, keep the camera on that, and I'm going to actually deflate it. Get an idea. It's a great product. They're very quiet, easy to put in. They'll work in many applications that you just may not have access to the outside of the duct. And keep in mind that 1 rectangular damper will shut off a number of round ducts downstream if that happens to work for your zoning plan. But we're here to help you with the design of that. So now I want to reiterate, this system can be used with really any 24-volt AC zone control system, no matter what brand, as long as it depends on open-close type dampers. Most of the systems on the market today do. We offer most of those systems. We have all that equipment and gear as well, but again, there's always a lot of questions about this system because it's different, but there's so much more that you can do with it that we have brought zoning into literally thousands of homes with this system that otherwise just weren't going to be able to afford multiple motorized dampers, never mind the installation. We have never had an unsuccessful do-it-yourself or installation. We're here with the technical support. We'll help you design the system. We'll help you apply it. It works great. I appreciate your time on this. I bet you're going to have a few more questions after seeing this, so just give us a call. Phone number is 972-633-8104. That's 972-633-8104. Office hours are 8:30 to 5, Monday through Friday, and we're here to help you. Thank you. Hi, I'm Jerry Tartolino with Retrozone Inc. We make retrofit damper systems for zoning systems. And we make these in a way that we can retrofit zoning into many applications where there's an existing duct system and it's just impossible to use mechanical motor-driven dampers. So I've been asked to give just a brief training seminar on a particular topic, and that is how to install the flex damper in an application where the duct system is mounted on the ceiling in a basement and it's been covered with sheetrock. How can we bring zoning to those applications? In those type of applications, you'll have a lot of round transitions coming off the duct that then round pipe will run underneath the ceiling and up through the walls to the 2nd and perhaps the 3rd floor besides some basement registers. But the problem is the sheetrock covers the ducts and it's just difficult to get dampers in there, but we have developed a way with some help of some very innovative minds in the Midwest who have shown us an installation tool that we have taken off with and made a few changes to it, and we want to demonstrate that to you right now. This is a round flex damper. This is the way you get it. When you get it, you size it, and then you put the 2 ends together with a special heat activated tape. That gets you this. This one's ready for installation. And I should point out, again, this application, what we're demonstrating here is specifically for basement applications where the duct system has been covered with sheetrock. If you have access to the round ducts, you can simply cut a 3-sided piece of metal out of the duct, peel the metal back big enough to get the damper through, place it in, and install it. It's just that easy. It's also possible to install these from the register, but that's not what we are covering today. I also do want to point out that there is a rectangular flex damper This one's not wide enough, but it simply inserts in the duct. If it were the right size, it would go from one side to the other. And then when it inflates, this blade simply lifts up and touches the top. And it's also possible with this product to bend it and to put it in through registers and other applications where you couldn't really get a traditional mechanical damper. This is the solenoid panel and pumping unit. This is what actually inflates and deflates these dampers. And the pressures that we use are less than a half PSI. They're very low pressure. And we use vacuum to evacuate the dampers. And we'll show you that here in just a second. Now let's get on with the new reach tool, where again, working from an access hole, perhaps you've cut one hole in the sheetrock and you're going to use a Home Depot access panel cover, or you're in the mechanical room where the duct isn't sheetrocked over and you've cut an access door there and you're standing on a ladder and you're looking down the duct. Now we're going to show you how to use the reach tool to install these dampers from here to these ducts. This is a piece of aluminum. It could easily be a piece of electrical conduit that has been bent with a conduit bender into a 90-degree arc. That's all it is. Could be however long you need it to be. For a dealer who is putting these in, you might want 3 or 4 of these, a 3-footer, a 6-footer, and a 10-footer, because obviously the longer they get, the harder they are to work with. Now another thing I want to point out with the damper we're about to install, a very important point, I have a yellow piece of marker tape to indicate where the damper is in the duct once it's installed, because in real application it won't be in a clear piece of duct that we're showing just so you can see the damper. You won't actually be able to see it. So let's go ahead and get on with installing this damper. Simply going to feed the tube in all the way down to the valve. We're going to take a piece of common Scotch tape. We're going to fold the damper as you see here. Now just to show you what's going on before I actually put it in there, we're going to reach down there and we're going to put it in, and then pushing on the tube we're going to be able to extend it on down the duct. That's really the key to this. So that we have more tubing to push on, I'm going to add an extension tube. Okay, here we go. Now, I'm on a ladder, I'm looking through an access panel, I'm reaching down the duct. I take my tool, I get it up there as far as I can, and I just push. Now it's in there. Now I'm going to go ahead and push the excess tubing. Now remember that piece of yellow tape, that's our marker tape now. I know that that needs to be even with the mouth of the duct before I deploy the damper, and it is. About right where I want it. Now this is a standard hand pump for a blood pressure cuff. You've seen these in the doctor's office, or at least it used to be. I think they've been outmoded now, but we're going to add these to our part line because this is a valuable device. While you're on the ladder, we're going to now deploy the damper in the duct. Again, I want to get that yellow tape right where I want it so I know where that damper is, because it's easiest to move right now. Here we go. Now I'm going to pump this, and we're going to be rewarded by a nice sharp pop when that tape lets go and the damper deploys. There we go. I'm going to give it a few more pumps, also just to show what it looks like. There we go. We don't want to overdo it. So that is deployed, and even if it weren't, it would deploy with actual use. Now I'm going to disconnect it, and we're going to show the under vacuum the deflation. And that damper is installed and ready to go. It's time to move on to the next damper. So it's a very quick, painless process to get it in there. Then it's just a matter of matching up the tubes, hooking back to the solenoid panel and pump, which then in turn will hook up to any 24-volt AC zoning system, and you can enjoy the benefits of zoning in your home and get rid of those troublesome cold basements and hot upstairs. Thank you. I'm Jerry Tartolino. This is Retrozone, and this is the method for installing our flex dampers above ceilings that have been sheetrocked. Thank you. I want to talk about our dampers. You know, I think a lot of people wind up with dampers in their home for zoning systems, and they never really understand that there are huge differences in dampers. This is our Super Duty damper, our most popular damper, with a true Belimo commercial grade actuator. Belimo being one of the leading manufacturers of commercial damper motors. When we say commercial, it's sitting on a half-inch drive shaft. It's riding on Retrozone hardware set in bronze bushes. You can see the size of the shaft coming out the other side. And it is a very thick sheet metal that you can see while I'm pushing very hard, it's barely flexing at all. These are tough dampers. And we sell these for about the same price as what we call residential grade dampers. The way we do that, we build the entire damper here. We do not go through wholesale distribution. We don't have reps. All the normal ways that the cost of a damper keeps going up and up and up and up. Sometimes we hear of consumers paying perhaps $250 for a damper that we sell at the consumer level for $99. 5-year warranty on it. It's the best deal in America on dampers, and again, that's because we go direct. Now, give you an idea, this is an old Interstat damper, which is comparable, and I'm using an Interstat damper because they're no longer in business and don't want to hurt anybody's feelings on this, but this is very typical. This is a Synchron, what's called a Synchron motor. It is a spring return damper. This is about the cheapest way to possibly build a damper. If you could look in here, the reason this is in the junk pile, it's because it's broken. It actually has plastic bushings, plastic and nylon bushings. There are no bronze bushings. There's not even a damper shaft in here. This is what you get when you try to build a damper the cheapest way possible, so that by the time it goes through several levels of markup, it can still be sold at a price that is deemed saleable. Take a look at the different motors here. If we had this operating right now, this motor, if it had sat there for about an hour, it'd be so hot you couldn't even touch it. That's how a spring return motor works. It actually runs the damper blade to the closed position, and then that motor continues to draw power. This, on the other hand, after being hooked up all night, you can't even feel it's warm because it depowers itself. So it stops pulling energy, and you go, well, how much could that little motor use? If you have 5 or 6 of them in a house, it can use certainly some energy, but the bigger factor is the durability of the motor. Obviously, a motor like this that's sitting there cooking in a 130-degree attic, that damper motor temperature can hit 150, 160 degrees. That's why we replace a lot of damper motors like that, and that's why it's important to use what we call a 3-wire damper that powers itself open, powers itself closed, but then doesn't pull power. Lots of differences between what you get on dampers in terms of the durability. Another big advantage I don't think people understand on this damper, it's on a standard half-inch drive shaft. And what that really means is, if a new system comes out 5 years from now, this motor comes right off. You unbolt 2 screws, and you can put a host of different, this is a Honeywell ML6161 actuator, goes right on the same. In other words, this is a universal commercial setup. Will take virtually any damper motor made. You never have to change this part. That's a few differences. I hear I'm running out of time. I could talk for a lot longer because there are so many differences between really true commercial grade dampers and old residential grade dampers that are built cheap and look like it once you really start looking at it. If this had been in your home, you wouldn't have changed out that motor. You would have had to rip the duct system apart, changed out the whole can. It does make a difference. Take a look at our SD dampers. Thank you.